All right. Welcome to Coffee with Marcus or Mark, the number one stock market show on Spotify and one of the most popular market updates on YouTube. In this show, we talk about what's happening in the markets and how we're trading them. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. It's Fed Day. Stocks are quiet, waiting for the Fed decision this afternoon. The fear index is spiking, yields are rallying. Plus, we had two WTF signals to consider this morning. We'll review those, let you know if we decided to trade them or not. As you can see, there's a lot to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get started. If this is your first time here, my name is Mark Hodge. I'm head coach at Rockwell Trading, and let's see what the markets are doing. So it's Fed Day, Fed Day, Fed Day, and let's take a look at the S&P 500. First, take a look at what happened yesterday. There was a nice start to the session and a rally. Let's go to a 5-minute chart here with the S&P 500, and this is what yesterday looked like, where we were off to the races, rallying, making highs in the morning, but then pulling back, filling that gap, and then once we filled that gap, finding a range that was a little bit lower than where we ended the day on Monday. By the end of the trading session, though, we were still higher by 1.5 points, which is nothing for the S&P. It's a positive day, but just barely. And today, if you want to see what a chart looks like that tells you traders are waiting for something, this is it. The S&P 500 opening a little bit higher around 56.42 and then pulling back to trade right where we ended up yesterday, and we have barely moved from yesterday's close. I mean, here we're, look at this, up less than 0.1%, trading in this range, down about 0.1%. Just a real narrow range, a 10-point range all morning long. This is because everybody is waiting for it this afternoon. We can take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Dow is down a little bit right now, down 68 points, which is about 0.2% lower. Yesterday, the Dow finished lower by 16 points, just a small loss for the Dow. The NASDAQ slightly higher today. NASDAQ was able to finish higher yesterday by 0.2%. So just not a whole lot of movement. And traders and investors are clearly waiting for the Fed decision. And let's see what Fed funds futures are showing and what the probabilities look like. The Fed wrapping up their 2-day policy meeting in 2 hours and 55 minutes here. Right now, based on Fed funds futures, there's still a higher chance or higher probability that the Fed is going to cut by 0.5 point. I mean, this has been interesting because up until about a week ago, the probability of a 1/4 point was much higher for most of the trading that we had over the last month or so. And then that flip-flopped. And now is a 0.5 point on the table? Is it a 1/4 point? I still believe that the 1/4 point is most likely, but it could be the dot plot that actually is the most significant here, right? Because investors, yes, beginning the rate cut cycle, this is important. This is a big deal. We haven't seen a cut in 4 years, and starting this rate cut cycle is going to be significant. But it's also about what the Fed believes is most likely going to happen by the end of the year and also going into 2025. So that dot plot gets updated, and this is where with the dot plot, there we go. See, they get to share where they expect based on monetary policy, where the rate ranges will be for years to come, right? And specifically, where are we at the end of the year? Where are we in 2025? And I think that this is going to be even more significant because the Fed really is thinking about policy that will and where rates are going to be 6 months from now or 12 months from now. And yes, this meeting is important. And yes, I do believe that a cut's on the table. That would be a huge shock to the market if the Fed did not cut at this point in time. But I think a half point cut's a little bit optimistic, and the quarter point is most likely here. So we'll find out this afternoon. And if we look at the economic calendar here, go to PowerX Optimizer, bring up the economic calendar. There are typically three reactions to a Fed decision here. Now, at 2 p.m. Eastern time, you have the Fed funds rate released, and then you also get their economic projections. This happens quarterly, where the dot plot gets updated, so that's significant. And then you get a statement from the Fed. Now, 30, and so typically you get a reaction to this statement. I mean, there's even algorithms that are picking up on the wording that's being used. It's I mean, these days it's just crazy. But this is probably one of the biggest Fed meetings that we've had in a while. Well, it is. I mean, it's not probable or probably. It is the biggest Fed meeting we've had in a while. And this is where you get a reaction at 2 p.m. based on this data. And then there's that press conference with Jay Powell. And 30 minutes after that statement, there's typically a reaction to what he is saying and his commentary. And then the next day, you typically see a reaction as well, as traders are digesting everything that happened on the Fed day. And it could be that there's an opposite reaction the day after. We'll have to wait and see, but the market is expecting a little volatility here. And we could look at the wheel analyzer and actually bring up SPY here. So SPY is the S&P 500 ETF, and we could look at the expected move this Friday. So this Friday's expiration is pricing in 1.5% move to the upside and downside. So when we look at expected moves, the idea is that based on current options prices, they're pricing based on one standard deviation would mean that there's a one standard deviation 68% chance we stay within this range, which would right now be between 554.46 and 571.30. The 552 strikes available if you want to wheel and deal with the wheel strategy. Sell some puts there. I don't see any key support here, so for me it wouldn't be something that I would consider. But pricing in a pretty decent move here if we look at options, and that would mean that if there's a 68% chance we'll stay within these levels, then a 32% chance we'll stay, will pop above or below. That would mean a 16% chance below the 554 mark, 16% chance we pop above 571. We'll have to see. I mean, this is where options prices, the bottom line is that there is some volatility getting priced in, and you could also see this with the VIX. The VIX is tracking S&P 500 premium in S&P 500 stocks, and we see that today the VIX is up 7%, creeping higher here. Now, with the markets flat and the VIX spiking, it just shows that investors are getting a little nervous and anxious about this afternoon meeting. Typically, you see the VIX moving higher when the S&P is moving lower. So this type of move higher in the VIX or fear index when the S&P is going nowhere just shows that options traders are making some bets expecting that the S&P will move. Maybe higher, maybe lower. We'll have to see. But volatility is definitely here right now. So it's going to be an interesting day. It's going to be an interesting day, and I will have my eyes glued to the markets. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, where I'm located on the right side of the U.S., even though it's the left side of the U.S. I mean, there we go. There we go. So let's see what we are trading, and let's take a look at the WTF strategy, because we had two new WTF signals today. So there was Colgate Palmolive CL, the ticker, and we had a buy signal with the strategy. We had a signal identified based on the close yesterday. The software gave us a buy signal to buy at today's open, and I was filled at the open. I did take this one. So I took a couple of trades going into the Fed meeting. And then Altria, MO. This was another one, buy signal to buy this morning. 50-50 was where I was filled at the open here. Up a little bit right now. I'll take that. And this would be according to my plan. So my plan is to take signals, especially if I'm not in any. So this is where didn't have any uh, WTF trades. The last two trades closed for a win with BKR and also uh, GM there. So close those trades for profits. And my plan is to trade signals, and just, for me, this strategy, it's a numbers game. You take the signals, and when you are taking a trade when others are fearful and you're willing to step in, you're winning the fear. So that's what WTF stands for. Yes, we have a sense of humor here at Rockwell Trading with our SOL analyzer and WTF analyzer. But that's what we're looking to do. I mean, here there's clearly been a pullback, an extreme pullback. What we're looking to do is capitalize on this. And we know that typically we're in a trade for 4 to 5 days, and then we exit. On average, we have a 70% winning percentage. So I would expect out of 10 trades, 7 out of 10 trades to be winners over time. And as far as the losses go, it's probably a little bit better to consider 20 trades where 14 out of 20 would be wins, which is right at that 70% mark. 5 of those 6 losses typically are small losses with a technical exit where the software identifies a reason to close the trade. And then 1 out of 20 could be a stop loss on average, based on my experiences and also trading. We're doing a ton of testing with this strategy in different market conditions. So bottom line, crude oil. For those of you who do trade futures, you know that the symbol is CL. This is actually messed up quite a few traders where they're like, hey, I'm looking for crude oil and I can't find it in my platform, and it keeps bringing up Colgate Palmolive. Well, CL is the symbol for crude oil futures, but this is not crude oil. This is Colgate Palmolive. And then we have MO Altria Group. All right, we might as well go back here and take a look at some open wheel trades. BP also flat right now, just like the overall market. Nice little rebound here, recovery off of the 31 mark, trading around 32.50 right now. Nothing for me to do. CSIQ, interesting to see a little bit of follow through here, making highs today that we haven't seen since August 21st. And look at that, really filling that gap finally with the pop above this recent high. To me, this is a little surprising with the Fed on deck here, but I'll take this 1.3% gain right now, and we'll see if there's a little more follow through to the upside after the Fed. Halliburton pulling back just a little bit, down 0.9%. Nothing for me to do with this one right now. Coals up 1.3%. I do know we had some traders selling calls on coals yesterday, reversing yesterday, but nice to see coals up today over 1%. Merck pretty much flat, just like the overall market. And then we have UPS also flat, just like the overall market. And we could go over here to the heat map and see where these gains or losses are distributed as well. And I mean, this really says it all. This kind of dark shading here where there isn't a true highlight. That means that the stocks are up or down just a tiny bit, but not significantly. Apple up 1.9%, so rebounding there. Anybody that sold puts at the beginning of the week because of that drop after some demand concerns for their new iPhone probably benefiting nicely from this rally in Apple. Maybe because of the Fed, there's still some premium priced in to those options because of the uncertainty. So you might not be able to exit at 80 or 90% right now, but those should be looking pretty good. We see that elsewhere it's kind of mixed. I mean, American Express down over 1%, Oracle down 1.7%, Netflix down 1.3%, Honeywell down 1%, but not any major losses here. It's mixed, which is just like we have seen today in the S&P and the indices. So today's a big day. The Fed. Will they cut by a quarter point? Will they cut by a half point? But maybe more significantly, where do members see the rates at the end of the year and also going into next year with that dot plot? We will have to wait and see. Tomorrow is going to be an exciting show. We'll get to discuss the reaction and also see how the post reaction with tomorrow's trading is trading the markets. And before we wrap up, it's dad joke time. For some of you, it's the best time. For others, it's the worst time. But I appreciate you sticking around. And this is where I have to ask, what do you call a color that doesn't exist? A pigment of your imagination. With that said, I hope you had a great day today. Stay tuned. We're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to have fun. Marcus is going to be joining me. And until then, happy trading, everybody.